In this episode of That Was the News Then, we take a look back at one of the biggest unsolved cases, the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa. What happened to Hoffa? How did he die? And what about those rumors that his body was buried under Giant Stadium? This is what some of the actual news coverage looked like back then of Hoffa's mysterious death. Teamster president Jimmy Hoffa disappeared 50 years ago, and no one knows for certain what happened to him.
Late July 1975 was a time of polyester clothes, mutton chop sideburns, and bad plaids. On the radio, disco dominated. At the movies, Jaws was gobbling up the box office. In real life, some other sharks were moving in for the kill. Jimmy Hoffa, the former president of the mighty Teamsters Union, was pushing hard to get back in the union after a prison term for conspiracy and jury tampering. The feds were wary of his previous ties to gangsters. Nonetheless, it looked like he was going to win a court battle against a parole restriction prohibiting him from union activity.
My restrictions are removed. I would leave it up to the membership to determine whether or not they wanted James R. Hoffa to be the president of the International Union.
Some people had other ideas. Mafia chieftains were helping themselves to millions of dollars in Teamsters pension fund money. Then Teamsters president Frank Fitzsimmons turned a blind eye to the looting of the pension fund. Jimmy Hoffa's son has now resumed his father's quest for the Teamsters presidency. The younger Hoffa enjoys a clean reputation, but he's reluctant to talk about his father's relationship to the mob. When Hoffa vanished and the FBI entered the investigation, Bob Garrity was named the case agent. He's retired now, and for the first time, he's able to talk publicly about his reasons for believing the mafia murdered Jimmy Hoffa.
I've always said it was sort of a business decision, and the business decision was that if he doesn't get back in the union, he might go with the government. If he gets back in the union, things aren't going to be quite as cozy as they were with Frank Fitzsimmons. You know, Mr. Hoffa was somebody to be reckoned with.
Hoffa was last seen waiting outside the Macus Red Fox restaurant on the afternoon of July 30th, 1975. When Jimmy Hoffa failed to come home that night, his family feared the worst.
We're going to get to the bottom of this one way or the other. You can be assured of that.
The Bloomfield Township Police weren't so sure. Their only clue was Hoffa's car, left behind in the restaurant parking lot.
It doesn't look good.
Hoffa's abductors had been lucky in several ways. At the Detroit FBI, Special Agent in Charge Neil Welch had just been promoted and transferred. Welch advocated FBI investigations of organized crime. Jay Bailey, his temporary replacement, was more comfortable chasing bank robbers. He held his agents back for 4 critical days after Hoffa's disappearance.
Behind the scenes was a lot of discussion about whether or not the federal government really even had any jurisdiction, so that basically we were pulled back, and by being pulled back, we kept apprised of what was going on, but we were not actively investigating it. But we'd always hoped we could have gotten in right away.
Vince Wade for Fox News.
It became an urban legend that Jimmy Hoffa's body was buried in New Jersey under Giant Stadium. The legend claimed Hoffa was buried in one of the end zones during the stadium's construction in the 70s.
Whatever happened to Jimmy Hoffa? That's a question that's been floating around for the past 15 years. There finally may be an answer. Fox News reporter Christopher Jones has that story.
Ever since former Teamster boss Jimmy Hoffa disappeared from the Red Fox restaurant north of Detroit in July 1975, he has been presumed to be as dead as a doornail. The only question is, how was he killed and what happened to Hoffa's body? Now Playboy magazine has published a story which, if true, would confirm years of speculation that Hoffa was chopped up and buried in the Meadowlands in New Jersey. Playboy bases its report on a jailhouse interview with Donald Tony the Greek Francos, a self-described mafia hitman who has been placed in the federal government's witness protection program. The hitman turned stoolie says he was told the details of Hoffa's mob execution by the 2 men he claims are the murderers, John Sullivan and Jimmy Coonan. Franco said Hoffa was killed on orders of mafia boss and Teamster official Tony Provenzano because Hoffa threatened to expose to the federal government details of Teamster mob ties. The murder occurring when Hoffa was lured from the restaurant by 2 men, one Hoffa's own son-in-law. Franco says Sullivan and Coonan were waiting for Hoffa.
When Hoffa walked in, he made a turn to sit down, and Coonan and John Sullivan rushed out and put him twice in the forehead with the bullets, exploded his brains. He put Hoffa on his back, and he carried him down the stairs. Down the stairs is a large table. Over the table is a large light. They had the saw ready. They put him on the table. They took all his clothes off.
Franco's told Playboy Hoffa's dismembered body was eventually taken in a drum from Michigan to New Jersey by Joe Sullivan, seen here in this Bonnie and Clyde type photo. Sullivan allegedly contacting some wise guys in the cement mixing business who were only too happy to mix Hoffa's remains with the cement that was being used to construct part of Giant Stadium in the Meadowlands. To show you just how upset the mob is over the death of Jimmy Hoffa, Franco's claims they would frequently go to Giant Stadium, sit over the place where Hoffa allegedly is buried, and when the Giants made a touchdown would say, "This one's for you, Jimmy." So while they may not be getting one for the Gipper at the Meadowlands, they can win for Jim. Christopher Jones, Fox News, Channel 5.
In 1992, Hoffa the Movie hit theaters starring Jack Nicholson and directed by Danny DeVito. Danny sat down with Fox 5 and shared his take on the controversy surrounding the film.
All kinds of talk about Danny DeVito's new movie about Jimmy Hoffa, as you know. And it could be, I'm told, the biggest challenge of his directing career.
It certainly is stirring lots of debate, John. This $40 million epic written by playwright David Mamet chronicles the rise and fall of Teamster boss Jimmy Hoffa, arguably the most famous missing corpse in history. And while some, if not many, believe that Hoffa was a hood controlled by the mob, don't tell that to Danny DeVito.
Mr. Hoffa, I think he was a national hero.
What do you say to people who say your view of Jimmy Hoffa is controversial, that this guy was really a thug, and you're saying he's a national hero?
Well, here's what I feel. I feel that, you know, I once said that I thought it'd be nice to have Jimmy Hoffa as president. A man with the qualities of Jimmy Hoffa. You see, here's the thing, an undying champion of your cause.
DeVito was so passionate about making Hoffa, once his plans for the film went beyond the budget the studio had envisioned, he reportedly agreed to throw his usual salary as director and co-star into the pot.
I knew the normal things. I knew the things that you always heard, that he was a thug, he wasn't a very nice guy, he was on the take. After I read David's screenplay and did a lot of research, I found that these things were false.
For DeVito, there was only one actor for the part.
You were really relentless in pursuing Nicholson in the beginning, like you wanted to be there when he read the script. There's a story that you were standing by the pool as he was reading the script in his house.
Those are all true things. He read the script on the way back from New York. He called me that night. He said he loved it. So the next morning, he's getting up and he looks down there, and I'm standing there with a big smile on my face. He's mine. I have him. He said he would do the picture.
DeVito and Nicholson have in fact been friends since they appeared together in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. They're both from the same part of New Jersey, and they used some old neighborhood jokes to rev up the crew during the grueling 4-month-long shoot, like,
"Queeps, you know, you monk, you got all your dodos, you queep." We have lots of stuff that we can, you know, to elicit any kind of response we like from the crew. You understand? So.
You gonna share any of those, or?
You gotta be there, babe.
In 2003, nearly 28 years after Jimmy Hoffa vanished, a new lead had investigators digging up a backyard in Michigan.
What started out as a day of promise in the murder investigation of ex-Teamsters boss Jimmy Hoffa turned out to be a dead end. Nearly 28 years after Hoffa vanished, a team of investigators spent several hours digging in the ground in this backyard looking for evidence. They were carrying out a search warrant based on information from an inmate by the name of Richard Powell, who once owned this home and is now serving time for murder. The search was spearheaded by Dave Gorzyka, a prosecutor from Oakland County, Michigan, near Detroit, who traveled more than 100 miles for this trip, bringing along this inmate informant, a forensics team, and evidence technicians. They were looking for a briefcase that this informant, Richard Powell, says he buried. Gorzyka says it would have taken this investigation to a new level had they found this briefcase, that the Hoffa investigation would have moved to a new stage and perhaps could have led to some DNA. So why believe an inmate? Powell told authorities earlier this year that they'd find a body in the crawl space of this very home, and sure enough, they did. Authorities tell me that Powell used to be a runner for the mafia, and when he came forward with information, they felt compelled to investigate.
We wouldn't have come up here if we didn't think
this individual had some information that was worth pursuing. We brought a lot of manpower and resources up here. That would not have occurred unless we legitimately felt this was credible.
Gorczyca told me, quote, he's disheartened that this tip fizzled. He says if he gets another lead tomorrow, he's going to pursue it, that he's going to work hard to put this case to rest, that he owes it to the Hoffa family. In Hampton Township, Michigan, I'm Jeff Goldblatt, Fox News.
And that was the news then.